Did you know that hundreds of millions of people around the world take some form of pain medication every day? Yet the rates of chronic pain are still rising. So the question is, if medicine worked, why are we still suffering? Have you ever followed every doctor's advice, taken every supplement, tried every remedy, and still woke up aching, tired, and defeated? Have you ever wondered if your body is trying to tell you something that medicine can't hear? I'm not here to tell you to throw away your pills, but I am here to ask a question that changed everything for me and many others. What if pain isn't just something to be numbed, but something to be understood? What if healing doesn't begin with another prescription, but with one simple practice done daily, quietly, and without cost? In today's video, we'll explore a powerful yet overlooked approach, rooted in Zen Buddhist wisdom, modern emotional insight, and your body's natural intelligence. A method so gentle it feels like nothing, but so deep it can begin to soothe the very places pain has lived for years. If you're tired of treating symptoms and ready to meet the root, this is for you. Let's begin the journey into the quiet medicine that lives within. 1. The real reason your pain persists. What medicine doesn't heal. You can numb the pain, but what happens when the numbness wears off and the ache is still waiting? Let's start with a quiet truth. Painkillers may dull the sensation, but they rarely speak to the source. They silence the alarm without checking the fire. In Zen Buddhism, pain is not viewed as the enemy, it is seen as a messenger, one with a very specific language. And if you ignore it, suppress it, or label it as something to conquer, it will only shout louder. Imagine your body like a wise, tired horse. It has carried the weight of everything you refuse to feel: unspoken grief, suppressed anger, quiet betrayals you buried under busyness. Now that horse is limping, not because it's weak, but because you never let it rest. This is the hidden weight most people carry. The reason so many feel chronic pain, even after surgery, supplements, and lifestyle changes. They've cleaned the surface, but the roots remain tangled. Pain that repeats itself is rarely physical in origin alone. It often grows from what you've emotionally postponed. Let me tell you a story, a Zen parable. There was a monk who came to the master complaining of severe lower back pain. He had tried herbs, postures, even fasting. The master simply asked, "What are you carrying that does not belong to you?" At first, the monk was confused, but as he sat in silence, memories of unresolved guilt surfaced, moments where he had turned away from helping his dying father. For the next week, he didn't stretch, and he didn't take any medicine. He simply sat, breathed, and allowed what he had denied to rise, and the pain softened. You see, the body remembers what the mind tries to forget, but it also forgives if you give it space to speak. Here's where the shift happens. Most of us chase solutions outside. We look for pills, fixes, and routines, but healing begins when we pause and turn inward. Not to analyze, but to listen. That's the medicine no one bottles, the still, patient practice of presence. And yes, this is supported by what we now understand about how the nervous system works. Chronic stress creates a cascade of chemical signals that keep the body on alert. But when we create stillness, something miraculous happens. The body begins to feel safe again. It opens. It releases. But here's the twist. You have to trust that doing nothing is doing something profound. We live in a world obsessed with action, but in Zen it is said, don't just do something, sit there. That's not laziness, it's courage. It's choosing to sit in front of your pain, without fear, without labels, and let it show you where it began. When we stop resisting what we feel, the body stops clenching. And when the body stops clenching, energy starts flowing. It's like unclogging a river that's been dammed for decades. At first, the water might stir up mud, but soon it clears. And what returns is vitality. You don't need more medication. You need more stillness. Not silence on the outside, but stillness within. A mind that is not constantly running, scanning, or fearing. If your body could talk, it might not ask for a prescription. It might whisper, "Please, stop fighting me. Just feel with me." And that whisper is where your real healing begins. Of course, I'm not saying to abandon your treatment plans or ignore medical guidance. But what I am saying gently, urgently, is that if you're not addressing the inner landscape, the outer treatments will always fall short. I'll be honest. This isn't a quick fix. It's a practice, a path, a remembering. But it's the only path I know that brings not just temporary relief, but deep renewal. So if you're still listening, if something inside you is nodding quietly, then maybe it's time to try something beautifully different. So perhaps the question isn't, how do I get rid of this pain? But rather, what is this pain still holding for me? Because pain doesn't just visit the body randomly. It follows a trail that often begins in the heart, gets buried in the mind, and eventually settles into the flesh. If you're ready to trace that trail back to its root, then let's go deeper, into the place where memories live quietly beneath the skin and where your healing truly begins. Welcome to the next part. The body remembers everything. 2. The body remembers everything, the link between mind, memory, and pain. What if the tightness in your shoulders isn't from bad posture, but from a memory you never spoke of? We tend to think of memory as something that lives only in the mind, stored in folders, neatly labeled. But the truth is, your body remembers everything, not as sentences or photographs, but as sensations, contractions, and silent echoes. That feeling in your chest when someone raises their voice, the dull ache in your stomach when you wake up, anxious, the sudden clenching in your back when you're asked to just relax. These aren't random. They are emotional bookmarks, quietly reminding you of a story your conscious mind may have forgotten. In Zen teachings, it is said, the body is the last to lie. Even when your mind has convinced you that everything is fine, your body gently protests, not to punish you, but to protect you, because it knows beneath every "I'm okay," there may be a hidden knot waiting to unravel. Let's imagine your body as a garden. Every thought, every emotional moment plants something there. Some seeds grow into peace. Others, like shame or resentment, grow into tangled vines. The longer they're ignored, the more they choke the flowers. One woman once told me she had had neck pain for 17 years. Nothing helped. Not massage, not physical therapy, not medication. It was only after a moment of deep reflection during meditation, when she remembered the exact words her father shouted at her before leaving, that her pain finally began to melt. It wasn't the neck, it was the weight of being unheard. And here comes the twist no one expects. Healing isn't always about fixing the body. It's about feeling what the body is trying to fix for you. That's where the magic of presence comes in. When you bring awareness to a part of your body that's in pain and stay there, without judgment, without trying to fix it, something extraordinary happens. The body begins to release its grip. Like a child who finally feels safe enough to cry, the tissue softens, the breath deepens, the current flows again. It's as if your body were waiting for you to come home to it. Now here's where energy enters the picture. Where your attention goes, energy flows. That's not philosophy. It's an observable pattern in life. When you direct soft, compassionate awareness to your shoulder or your jaw or your chest, you're not just noticing it, you're feeding it warmth. You're telling that part of your body, I see you, you're safe now. And the body responds every time. It's a bit like sunlight on frost. You don't need to do anything aggressive, just be there. And the ice eventually will know what to do. Now, I know some of this may sound poetic or abstract, but think of it like this. When you smile, your brain changes. When you cry, your chemistry shifts. So why wouldn't sitting with your pain, quietly, lovingly, begin to change your health? And don't worry, no one expects you to become a monk overnight. I always say start with a moment, not a miracle. Even 2 minutes of quiet attention each morning, placing your hands over the place that aches and breathing gently, can begin a new conversation with your body. And here's my take. I don't think the body wants to be healed as much as it wants to be heard. It wants a relationship with you, not another attempt to fix it like a machine. So the next time you feel that familiar twinge, instead of reaching for the usual solution, try asking, what are you trying to tell me? You might be surprised what answers arise when you finally stop interrupting yourself. And in the next part, we'll step into the very practice I've been hinting at. The one that monks have used for centuries, not just to quiet the mind, but to calm the body's pain from the inside out. Get ready, because stillness might become your most powerful medicine yet. 3. Stillness is the strongest medicine. How this daily practice heals. What if doing nothing was the most powerful thing you could do for your pain? In a world addicted to action, stillness seems counterintuitive, almost irresponsible. We're taught that the more effort we put in, the more results we'll get. So when pain arrives, we react. Stretching, running, Googling, swallowing. We chase solutions like a cat chases light, fast, frantic, and always missing the center. But Zen asks a different question. What if the solution isn't in doing more, but in stopping altogether? Here's something few people are ever told. The body doesn't just respond to movement. It responds to attention, and attention without effort, that's stillness. Stillness is not the absence of activity. It's the presence of deep awareness without resistance. This is where the daily practice begins. Not with fixing or forcing, but with noticing, gently, completely, without judgment. Imagine sitting with your body as if it were a dear friend in pain, not giving advice, not rushing to rescue, but simply being with them, fully present. In that space, something unexplainable begins to shift. From a biological lens, this kind of still attention softens the fight or flight response. It allows the nervous system to regulate. Breath slows, muscles unclench. The immune system wakes up. It's like turning off the background alarm that's been blaring for years without you realizing it. A Zen saying is, when the water is still, the moon can reflect clearly. That's not just poetic, it's a blueprint. When the body is still, it begins to reflect what's real. And what's real is that beneath all your tension, there's tenderness. Beneath the noise, there's knowing. Your body already remembers how to heal. It just forgot because you've been too loud for too long. Let me share a story from the Zen tradition. A young man came to the master complaining of chronic headaches. I meditate, he said. I eat well. I've tried everything. The master asked, do you sit to get rid of the pain or to meet it? The man replied, of course, to get rid of it. The master smiled. Then you are still running, just slower. It's a twist many of us don't expect. Even in stillness, the mind can be striving, wanting to change something. But true stillness isn't a tactic. It's a trust. Now let's talk about how this practice works in daily life. Start with just 5 minutes. Find a quiet place. Not perfect, just quiet enough. Sit or lie down. Bring your awareness to the area of your body that feels discomfort. Not to judge it, not to analyze it, just to sit with it like you would with a child who's afraid. Breathe. Notice. If your mind wanders, that's okay. Gently return, again and again. This isn't about doing it right. It's about showing up. The body responds not to perfection, but to presence. And here's the kicker. Most people give up after 2 days because they don't feel anything big. But healing doesn't always announce itself with trumpets. Sometimes the miracle is subtle. A deeper breath, a night of sleep without tension, a strange sense of calm that wasn't there before. That's how the medicine whispers, not shouts. Stillness isn't sexy. It won't trend on social media. But it's the most rebellious act in a world obsessed with doing. And in case you're wondering, can something this simple replace painkillers? Let me ask you this. If stress and emotional overload can cause disease, why wouldn't calm, presence, and safety reverse it? You don't need incense or mantras. You don't need to sit cross-legged on a mountain. You just need to stop running from yourself. And when you do, when you begin to meet your body like a trusted companion instead of a broken machine, you'll begin to notice something extraordinary. The pain may still be there at first, but your relationship to it changes. And when your relationship changes, healing begins. Before we move on, let me say this. There's nothing wrong with you for being tired, for hurting, for needing help. But there is something deeply right about trusting your body's wisdom again. And in the next part, we'll explore why where you place your attention each day doesn't just affect your pain, but your entire energy system. Because healing isn't passive, it's a choice of focus. And what you focus on expands. 4. What you focus on heals, energy follows attention. If your body listens to every thought you think, what have you been telling it lately? Here's something most of us don't realize until much later in life. Healing isn't something that just happens to us. It's something that responds to us. And one of the most powerful forces in that response is attention. Where attention goes, energy flows. And where energy flows, healing follows. Now let's pause here for a moment. You've probably heard that saying tossed around like a cliche on a wellness poster. But pause and look at it through the lens of Zen. In the Zen tradition, attention isn't just awareness. It is present, undistracted, undivided, and deeply honest. Like a candle in the dark, it reveals what has always been there, but was simply waiting to be seen. So if you spend your day scanning for pain, fearing its return, remembering how bad it used to be, guess what gets stronger? But if instead you gently place your awareness on what feels alive, soft, open, even if it's just the tip of your nose breathing, the body begins to respond differently. That small shift in focus is not trivial. It is alchemical. Let me share a story from the Zen scrolls. A young novice, often sick and tired, asked the master, "Why does my body suffer even when I try so hard to heal it?" The master replied, "Because you sit with your pain like it's a thief. Sit with it like it's your teacher instead." That moment shifted something in the novice. He began to bow, not to his suffering, but to the opportunity it was offering. Over time, he reported not only fewer symptoms, but a greater sense of freedom inside his own body. The twist here is, it's not about ignoring pain or pretending to be happy. It's about choosing your focus with intention, not reaction. Choosing not to obsess over what's wrong, but to feed what's right. From a psychological lens, this is how we rewire. Not through force, but through gentle redirection. Each time we return our attention to the breath, to a sensation of ease, to a place in the body that feels neutral or safe, we create new pathways. We build a new relationship, one based not on fear, but on faith. Faith, not in a religion, but in the body's ability to listen, shift, and heal when it is met with kindness. It's a bit like training a puppy. Your mind will wander, bark, and chase shadows, but with gentle, consistent redirection, it learns to stay. And when it stays long enough, healing walks in like an old friend. Here's where I offer something personal, not as a guru, just as a human. When I began practicing this shift in attention, I noticed something strange. The pain didn't always vanish, but my suffering around it softened. I became less afraid of the discomfort and more curious about what it was showing me. And when fear leaves the room, healing finds the door. Now let's make this practical. Every day, carve out just 5 minutes. Not to fix yourself, but to feel into what's working. It might be your hands, your breath, the fact that your heart, quietly and without praise, has been beating every second since you were born. Sit with that, thank it, focus on it, and then watch what happens. You'll begin to feel more energized, not because the pain is gone, but because your life relationship has changed. Painkillers numb, but presence transforms, and attention is your bridge from one to the other. A few of you might be thinking, but what if my pain is so loud, I can't find anything that feels good? That's fair. Then start even smaller. Maybe with the feeling of air on your skin, or the sound of silence. Anything that is here and now. And yes, there will be days it feels silly or pointless. That's part of the practice. Healing is rarely dramatic. It's humble, quiet, repetitive, but so is the sunrise. And yet we never get tired of its light. So perhaps healing was never about trying harder, but about softening deeper. Perhaps it's not about doing more for the body, but trusting the body enough to let go finally. Because here's the paradox. You can't hold on to tension and expect to feel free. You can't carry old stories and expect your body to feel light. So what if the final step isn't one more technique, but the quiet courage to release everything that no longer serves you? Let's explore this together in the next part. 5. Why letting go is the final step to healing. What if everything you've been doing to heal is the very thing holding you back? In Zen, the final teaching often comes not through effort, but through release. Letting go is not weakness. It's not passivity. It's the most courageous act the heart can take when it's tired of clinging to what no longer serves. We're conditioned to hold on to memories, pain, identities, and even healing methods. Maybe if I just try a little harder, meditate longer, eat cleaner, think more positively, we whisper to ourselves as though healing is something we must conquer. But healing is not a conquest, it is an invitation, and letting go is the door. Now imagine your body as a tightly clenched fist. That tension has built up over the years. Layers of grief, self-blame, regret, expectation. Even when your conscious mind says, "I'm fine," the body still remembers what you won't release. Here's where something magical happens. The very moment you stop trying to heal is when healing begins. Not because the effort was wrong, but because the effort itself had become resistance. In Zen, there's a story of a monk who sat beneath a cherry blossom tree for 30 days, seeking enlightenment. On the 31st day, he stood up in frustration, gave up, and began to walk away. In that very moment of surrender, when he stopped wanting it, clarity flooded in. He looked back at the same tree, and it felt alive for the first time. Not because the tree had changed, but because he had. That's the twist. Sometimes it's not more action you need, it's more surrender. Letting go of the identity of the one who is broken. Letting go of the urgency. Letting go of the pain as proof of worth. Even scientifically, chronic tension is often tied to overactive survival circuits, ones that stay locked in because your body doesn't trust the threat is over. Letting go, then, becomes an act of safety, of signaling, we're okay now. You can release. It's the moment the body feels safe enough to soften. From a psychological point of view, attachment isn't just to people, it's to outcomes. The need to be cured, the desire to be pain-free, and ironically, that craving creates inner pressure. Pressure becomes stress. Stress tightens the system, and we loop endlessly. But when you release the craving, the body expands again. It remembers how to breathe freely. It begins to repair, not just because it's told to, but because it finally can. You might be wondering, how do I let go when I don't know how? The answer isn't a step-by-step manual. It's a moment of honesty. You sit, you breathe, you say inwardly, I release the need to control this. And even if your mind doesn't believe it yet, your body hears the whisper. It's like exhaling after years of holding your breath. Here's a little humor to lighten it. Letting go is like deleting 50,000 unread emails from your inbox and finally feeling like a free person. You may not know what was in them, but you know they were weighing you down. Now let's be real. Letting go doesn't mean apathy. It doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop clutching. You give your body and life enough space to surprise you. One woman I worked with had tried every therapy, every supplement, every trick in the book. Nothing lasted. Then one day she said, I'm done chasing healing. I just want peace. And in that softness, her migraines, which had plagued her for 15 years, began to fade. Not overnight, but steadily, because she wasn't fighting anymore. She was finally allowing opinion. Letting go is the most underrated medicine in the modern world. We're told to hustle, strive, and overcome. But what if the greatest healing of all is in undoing? So here's my invitation to you today. What are you still gripping that no longer serves you? What belief, emotion, or identity are you still wrapping your energy around, hoping it saves you? And what might happen if you let it fall just for a moment and breathed into what's underneath? Because underneath the pain, underneath the history, is a silence that has always been whole. If you've made it to this point, take a deep breath, because you've just walked through something most people never take the time to face. We've uncovered how stillness is not laziness, but a medicine. How presence can shift pain. How your body remembers more than your mind allows. How attention, softness, and letting go aren't just spiritual fluff, but the very soil where healing grows. The truth is, you're not broken. You're just heavy with stories, habits, and fears that were never truly yours to begin with. So here's the quiet miracle. You don't need more pills. You don't need more pressure. You just need to listen and choose again. Starting tomorrow, or even better tonight, return to just one simple thing. Sit in silence for 5 minutes. Not to fix anything, but to feel everything. No judgment, no rush. Just you, your breath, and the wisdom inside your body. And as you do, remember, healing doesn't shout. It whispers. It waits. So if something in this video moved you, helped you feel less alone, or reminded you of something you'd forgotten, please take a moment to share your story below. Comment, subscribe, or simply breathe with us in silence. Because this is not just a video, this is a return, and we're walking this homeward path together.